Hey everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So in this next video, I'm going to be following on from the context element of the whole portfolio career step-by-step guide, so to speak. And so here we've spoken about, number one, what you need to do to better understand yourself, to know what you should align yourself to career-wise. Number two, how you can understand the market to see what real needs are out there. And now number three, we're going to put it all together. And so putting this all together really means, what is this information actually telling you? So in the first bit, you would have a better sense of what your value system is, i.e. the things that you deem as important to you. And of course, looking back at your experiences, looking back at your expertise, looking back at your competencies, looking back at all of these different points of information, you can start to pick out what truly helps you make decisions in life, because those decisions will determine your destiny and your destination. Sounds very cheesy, but it's true, because if you know how you make decisions based on what is truly important to you, then it's going to help you decide what sort of culture fit you're looking for, how much money you're looking to make, what you're willing to do in terms of your effort and impact when it comes to these different types of roles or career opportunities. This is why values are so important. And I talk about it again and again and again. I was given the name Mr. Values back in the day when I used to do a lot of Instagram lives. And so understand specifically what your core values are. These are unchangeable things. Even if you're given 50 million plus, you would never change your decision on these things. We'll also understand what helps you, what drives you when it comes to decision making. These are your means values, and your ends values. What are you looking for? You're looking for a sense of autonomy and freedom. Everyone's looking for that in some way, shape or form. What does that look like for you? You're looking for a certain type of well-being and peace. I know I'm looking for that, at least anyway. And so all of these things will help you determine this stuff. And so once you look at that, you're also looking at the market. Okay, so yes, I do want these things, but is it realistic? What is the market saying based on me as a person, based on my skills, my expertise, my vision, my values, all this different stuff? What is the market actually saying that I can do? And even if it doesn't exist, is there a possibility that I can exist in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the model, in terms of the approach, in terms of the people, in terms of all of that kind of stuff? Because then you have a stronger idea. Of course, if you've spoken to people within your audience, people who align to what it is that you're aiming to do in your portfolio career, because there will be themes, but as a whole, they will give you a clearer idea. Now, something to note, can you do very different things? You can, but I would argue that if you are doing very different things, they all need to integrate and mesh into something that makes sense for who you are as a person, as an individual. I'll give you an example. I know somebody who is a finance influencer. I think his name is Mr. Money Jar. Really good stuff, etc., etc. And essentially, he gives some great financial information, I'm going to say, because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say advice or not. But I did see a couple of years ago that he was doing some comedy, and you could see that in his content. And so finance and comedy are two very different things, but they are skills that can be integrated, especially in this new portfolio career that, or should we say era, that people are looking to implement. And so with that in mind, they work, they mesh, they go together. And so if those things work for you, then by all means, try those stuff. And so once you've understood your personal stuff in the market, you want to start breaking things down a bit more mechanically. Now, this is where we start moving into things known as the SWOT analysis. Many of you know what this is. This is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There are internal things and there are external things. What do I mean by this? The internal things are your strengths and weaknesses. What do you see that is a strength of yours based on all of the data that you've seen? What are your strengths? Maybe a strength of yours is being strategic, okay? And this is noted based on the experience you've had doing strategy documents or helping certain individuals at a certain level consistently and persistently and getting certain types of results. What weaknesses do you have? Maybe you're not very good at numbers. And actually you rely and delegate that to somebody else who can do this sort of thing. And so maybe that is a weakness that's of note. Now, looking at the market, and this is why the market information is so important. What opportunities does this pose and what threats does this pose? So because you're strategic by nature, maybe there is an opportunity for you to become a independent strategy consultant, because now what they're looking for is a lot of individuals who can support with Great British Energy, or who can support with the Ministry of Defense stuff, etc., etc. And actually you can see there are roles that are popping up for that sort of stuff. So strategy consultant makes sense. Actually, you saw on Contract Finder that there were a few contracts that you could apply for where you could be that person and in fact bring in a team. Can you see why the first two things were important? Maybe the threats are there is an oversaturation of, I don't know, let's say for example, strategy consultants, or actually they need someone who has got a bit more technical and or number prowess and expertise so that they can number crunch and strategize at the same time. So that's a bit of a threat for you. Okay, maybe that's ill-defined, but the point I'm making is that the market helps you understand what strengths and weaknesses you have, or at least what opportunities and threats you have in relation to each other. So this is why we do that first bit. So do an exercise of highlighting what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what the opportunities are, and what the threats are. Okay, be very clear about it. You can lend this to AI if you want to just do a quick mock-up or whatever it may be. You won't necessarily own it. What I would suggest that you do is you do this manually. Yes, you should still do things manually. You should type it out, dictate it out if you want to use speech dictation. It just needs to come from your head. Look at the list, and then you could get all the information that you've gathered from your personal stuff, from the market, and from your SWOT analysis. And then you could put that into generative AI and see what pops out, because it may cover some gaps. It's always important to make sure that you have as much information from here as possible before you start leaning on AI. So that's the first exercise you can do. The second one you could do is a PESTLE analysis. I know these things are basic, but I feel like people don't, number one, actually do these things, and number two, understand why it's important. So the PESTLE element of it, let's go through it. Political. So maybe there is something in the political domain, in the economy, that is going to affect your opportunities in a good or bad light. So think things around maybe a certain president or prime minister has come into power, or maybe there's a certain party that's in power, which means it removes entrepreneurship opportunities or opportunities to do a certain type of thing within an industry, because you know that party or that person is against that. And so that poses an issue for you. Let's look at the economic. Maybe economically, maybe the tariffs as an example pose an issue in terms of you being able to sell your goods and services, or mainly goods should we say, at a certain price. Therefore, there are going to be logistical issues when it comes to your capex and your OPEX and all that kind of stuff there. So your capital expenditure and your operating expenditure as an example. So maybe for the the socio side of things, the social side of things, maybe there are some new sort of like laws or legislations in place that are changing the behavior and the ways in which people respond and react. And so actually you're thinking to yourself, are you able to bring in certain types of people given that this new law has come in, or whatever it may be? From a technological standpoint, is AI going to be the thing that disrupts what you do, or actually is it a way to enhance what you do? And is there an opportunity window that you need to take advantage of? Legally, maybe there is a new, I don't know, legal thing that has come into place, a statute or whatever it may be, that's affecting what you do. And then there's the environmental. Is there anything environmental that makes it more expensive or more harmful to you and your workers and or other people, etc., etc.? There are all these things to think about as well. And so a PESTLE analysis allows you to do a bit of a deep dive and actually think a bit deeper about where are the real opportunities and threats genuinely. Given that the market is made up of this PESTLE, where are the genuine threats? And of course, you don't have to use these frameworks only. You can use other frameworks, because these are all ways to think about the market and strategy. Strategy is just the approach you take in order for you to solve a unique problem for an end client or for yourself. That's essentially what strategy is. And so I was always taught that strategy comes down to 4 bums and a bench. The bums being the W and the bench being the H. So what, when, where, why, and how. Okay. And so it's the approach that we take. And so this is why we want to think about this stuff in a bit more detail. So there's a whole lot of stuff that you can utilize. You can utilize the ocean model and a few other stuff. I think there is I've forgotten the strategist's name. I think it begins with Portman? Whoever his name is. There's a whole bunch of different stuff you can utilize. But I find that doing at least those 2 things, the SWOT analysis and the PESTLE analysis, is enough to give me an idea of what I'm looking at. But I guess fundamentally what you're doing here is you're doing a gap analysis. So gap analysis is something that we're taught in program management, and essentially it helps define the blueprint. And really what we're looking at is, what is our current situation? This is what we did in part 1 and part 2. And where are we going? So what does good look like? That's what we're trying to define. So these are the opportunities and the threats. And then it gives us a clue in terms of what the plan needs to be in the middle. And so once you think about this, and you may want to write this statement out. This is the current situation. Write it all out. Maybe speak it out. Then you do the same thing in terms of the future state. Write it out. Speak it out. You grade the first bit, the current bit. So you grade it out of 10. Maybe you give yourself a 6. And then obviously where you want to be is 8, 9, 10. And then in the middle is the plan. It's the plan of action. This doesn't have to be a solid plan right now, but you'll have a good idea of what this looks like. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It doesn't have to be key objectives and all this kind of stuff there. You can do that for fun if you want to. You don't necessarily have to, because you've done all this work anyway, but if you want to do it, you can. And so that will give you an idea of what your aims are, because you have to define, who do you want to become? And sometimes the way you do that is you define it by an I am statement. So I am a program management consultant. Okay, that's the first bit. Who am I helping? Who helps public sector end clients become more efficient when it comes to their operations. That's who I'm helping and how I'm helping them. Oh, I haven't done the how yet, but the how is I do this using well-known methodologies such as MSP and change management, and embed this into their services. Very clear statements. And then you can talk about a number of other stuff that you do as well. In addition, I offer content, courses, and coaching centered around helping individuals become effective leaders, whatever it may be. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can say. But the point I'm making is that it's becoming succinct. Now, it sounds like it's just one thing. No, that one thing is the anchor. Where's the anchor come from? It's come from the core activity. But then the stuff at the end, you do it through courses, coaching, blah, blah, blah. That's just the additional stuff that you're looking to do. Those latch on to the core thing. And this makes up your portfolio career. So you're letting people know, this is what I do. However, there's a bunch of other stuff that I do as well. But come to me for the core stuff. And then if you're interested, I can do all this other stuff as well. So that gives you a clear idea of what you're looking to do. So now that we've done the context bit, we can start thinking about the core elements of your portfolio career. And that is centered around the core contract. So in the next video, I'm going to be talking about what you need to do in order to define your contract, what contract you're looking for. So talking about the different types of contracts. And also what you need to do to find that, to position yourself within that space and secure a contract that makes sense. So again, if you like videos like this, then make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.